Hello, everybody. This is Michael Barton with 6atexasfootball.com bringing you the Week 2 post-game show. And we're in beautiful Katy. This is the 2017 estimated brand new stadium that's under construction. And we have a great game going on tonight with Klein Collins and Katy. And we'll tell you all about it in just a little bit here. Hello, I'm Michael Barton.
I'm Matthew Walmsley.
And we're here to bring in the Week 2 2016 6atexasfootball.com post-game show.
Kid. Okay.
So we covered quite the slew of games this week. We had some games from Dallas. We want to thank our friend, we'll just call him that helped us out up there with watching and evaluating a game. So that one was Southlake Carroll versus Martin. And Southlake won. And we were surprised by that because Southlake laid such a big egg against Union the week before. Martin's a great team. Martin had just got done slaughtering Dallas Skyline. They blew through them. It was pretty bad. It really shows that Skyline is quite the bit down. Some of the notes that I have on the game that came from our friend in Dallas are that Martin has no offense. Their O-line is slow and not aggressive, and their quarterback is a one-stop shop that he goes to his first option every time, and that the running backs are not explosive and the defensive backs are passive. I'm just reading what I have. Don't slaughter me. They talked about Barnes, who's a stud and plays both ways at Southlake, and the quarterback has a slightly slow release and not much zip on the ball. The O-line is pretty good. The linebackers move well in gang tackle, and the defensive line isn't outstanding, but they do the job. So that's some of the notes we have on Southlake versus Martin. We weren't there for that game, but we did have a friend helping us cover it. Matt, you have anything to say about that game?
I was really impressed with Southlake's stats. They put together 584 yards, 264 of which were rushing.
Wow, that's a lot for Southlake.
It really is.
Well, I also see that they got 23 first downs to 19. That's pretty impressive. So that really surprised me considering what Southlake did against Union the week before. And Union looks like they're a pretty good team. I heard they smacked around Broken Arrow, and it was 35-0 at halftime when Trinity was up. Trinity was actually down 9-6 at halftime, if I'm not mistaken, last week against Broken Arrow.
They were, and they really stepped up their game this week.
That's pretty surprising, but, that is what it is. Southlake, you never want to count them out. They have that protect the tradition mantra, and it looks like they tried their best, and they did. So the next game we looked at was Lake Travis versus Steele out in San Antonio, and that was a barn burner, 59-56 in double overtime. The game obviously went back and forth. There was a lot of hammer and tong between the two teams. Lake Travis showed their offensive prowess, and Steele showed that their defense might have been a slight bit overrated. I'm not 100% sure. So in the first half, Charlie Brewer was 14 of 14 passing for 310 yards. The teams ended tied at 28, and there was 688 offensive yards in the first half. Talk about defense. Final few plays of the game, Steele was lining up in jumbo package and running on through. Then it came down to fourth down in double overtime, and they put Xavier Martin out on a bootleg to the right. He threw a pass. Two receivers tried to catch it at the same time, and it dropped. And that is how Steele dropped their game against Lake Travis. 59-56, one of the highlights of the weekend, honestly. So the next game we covered was North Shore versus Manville. Manville was a 5A, and North Shore obviously is a 6A. Vipe had just ranked North Shore number 1 in Houston the day before this game, and then North Shore dropped the ball. I was so shocked by North Shore's lack of offensive production. How about you?
I was extremely shocked.
It was surprising considering Bryant Beatty had gone from having 5 touchdowns the week before on the ground to having 0 touchdowns in the Manville game. North Shore got into the option, and the option was working, and for whatever reason, Coach K pulled it off the table and started running it up the middle. I'm not sure what to make of that. Do you have any stats for that game?
As far as the stats go for the North Shore game, they were very even in yards. Total yards for North Shore was 341, while Manville was sitting at 328. Now, there was a big difference in passing versus rushing. On the North Shore side, they passed for only 163 yards, whereas they ran for 178. On the Manville side, they ran for only 73 yards, but they passed for 255 yards. Now, something interesting to look at here is they only had a 36.67 pass completion rate, showing that they were just lobbing the ball and hoping that someone would catch it.
It does look like North Shore had some offensive miscues, and a lot of that had to do with injuries. I'm not going to get into specifics, but it looks like North Shore had quite a few guys out for that game, and it's unfortunate, but yes, North Shore dropped the Manville North Shore game 26-13 for the third straight year. On to some of the other games that we looked at. Trinity versus Westfield. One of the worst football games I've ever seen in my life. It looked like a scrimmage. In the first 2 quarters, there were 4 touchdowns scored off of bad snaps. Fundamentals, right?
Not only that, there was 2 touchdowns in the first 2 minutes.
Yeah, in the first 2 minutes. And that was Trinity snap. Trinity had a snap that was fumbled, picked up by Westfield, and then Trinity had a snap that went over to the right of the quarterback and fumbled into the end zone, and Westfield recovered. Westfield was up 20-0 in about 3 minutes of game time.
It was very quick.
It was crazy, and I think they need to work on fundamentals. Both teams really need to get back to fundamentals. I think Trinity will clean it up better than Westfield will, and Trinity will end up with a longer playoff run. What do you think?
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that.
I think so. I think the coaching will eventually catch up, and they both have great talent bases to work with. They have a lot going for them, and I think it will end up working out for both teams. Just at this point, it's time to get back into the classroom and study fundamentals. So the final game of the weekend that we attended, I think it was the final game of the weekend statewide, and it was quite fantastic. It was Katy versus Klein Collins. Now, Katy, of course, came into the game with a 0-1 start for the first time since 2008. I think 2008 was the last time they were 0-1. They lost to Westlake last week, and they came in as not really the underdogs. They were pretty highly favored. In my eyes, they were the underdogs because Klein Collins, I knew, has a humongous O-line and a great quarterback in Bryson Powers. Bryson Powers showed me who he was and why they call him Bryson Powers. He was 9 of 13 for a 69% completion rating, 119 yards. He didn't get any touchdowns through the air, but he was a big-time difference maker. He really moved the chains when Klein Collins needed him to, and he almost won this game. I mean, it was 35-21 with 3 minutes left in the third quarter, I believe it was. It was a good game. It was fantastic. It went down to the wire. I mean, you're talking about double overtime. I don't even remember the last time Katy was involved in an overtime game. One of the stats that stuck out to me was DeAndre Glass. 250 yards, 5 touchdowns. This kid's a freak. There were so many times that we saw him bottled up by the Klein Collins defense only to slip out, keep his balance, and run 50 yards for a touchdown. It was insane. It was incredible. That running back from Klein Collins wasn't bad either. DeAnthony Doyle had 162 yards, 2 52-yard touchdown runs, 3 touchdowns total on the night. Quentin Newton had 2 touchdowns. He had a punt return for a touchdown, I guess you would call it that. Well, it was a punt return for a touchdown. Katy punter missed. Well, the snap went over the Katy punter's head. It flew back into the end zone. Katy punter made a freakish play, recovered, grabs it, kicks it, and Newton runs it in for a touchdown, and that put them up 35-21. It's 2 weeks in a row that Katy was down 14 points and fought back. The first time it didn't really work out. This time it did. I think Katy's on the right track. What do you think, Matt?
Katy's definitely on the right track. They just need a little bit more coaching and a little bit more working on it, and they'll be right there with it.
I believe so too. Their defense will always come around. You have to believe in Katy's defense. I know they just gave up 49 points, so it's kind of hard to say you believe in them, but you have to believe in Katy's defense. Katy's calling card is defense, so you have to believe in their defense, and I believe that their defense is going to come back together. They have a big game this week against the Woodlands, and everybody knows the Woodlands and Katy kind of collide. They are rivals. The only team that keeps it close with Katy on the frequent basis is the Woodlands, and I think that's going to be a good one. I'm not making a prediction. So now we're going to bring you into the AP Top 10. Again, we're going off of the AP football list, which is the Associated Press rankings, and we're going to go into basically what happened, who's who, why they're there, and what they did this last week. So last week in 6A, we started off with number 1 Austin Westlake, and they lost to Liberty, Nevada, another Nevada loss. It was 21-14.
Allen beat ECA 45-10.
DeSoto beat Denton Guyer 51-17, and what's interesting about that game is Sean Robinson was the quarterback for Denton Guyer for the previous few seasons, and he transferred over to DeSoto, so it was kind of like the Sean Robinson Bowl, and I guess Sean Robinson won the Sean Robinson Bowl.
Converse Judson beat Northside Brennan 55-13.
Katy, of course, beat Klein Collins 50-49.
North Shore lost to Manville 26-13.
They did. Cibolo Steel lost to Lake Travis 59-56.
And of course, Lake Travis beat Cibolo Steel 59-56.
Cedar Hill, whom I don't think should be ranked personally, beat Mansfield 42-41.
Trinity beat Westfield 28-27.
So there's your top 10. Now let's take you into some of the highlights from the Katy game. Hey everybody, Jack Road Stadium, reporting on Klein Collins versus Katy. We're at halftime and Klein Collins is up 21-14. It's been a great game. Can't wait to see what the second half brings. All right, let's take you into some of the highlights from that 26-13 North Shore Manvel game.
Let's take you in to see the highlights from the Trinity Westfield game.
Ready, aim, fire.
One of the last segments here is the game-winning drive, where Mike talks about the game that we just attended. Let's see what he says.
Hey there, everyone. This is Mike with the game-winning drive, covering Westfield versus Euless Trinity. It was a decent game. kind of looked like a scrimmage. It was pretty ugly. One thing I noticed, I mean, of course, if you have 4 touchdowns due to bad snaps in the first quarter, it's going to be an ugly game. Trinity had a lot of size on the lines. Their quarterback needs some work. Westfield, same thing, a lot of size on both lines. Quarterback needs some work. They really both teams need to work on the center to quarterback snap exchange. It was just a really ugly ball game. It ended up 28-27 with Trinity coming out on top. I didn't take away a whole lot of positives. Both teams moved the ball on the ground decent. Daniel Young from Westfield's going to be a load for anybody to take down. He's a big running back, and he's ready to make contact. He loves to put his shoulder down and hit you with the pads. As far as Trinity goes, the quarterback, I believe it's pronounced Miley, he could use a little bit of work. His accuracy isn't where it needs to be. In fact, their longest pass in the night was a reverse where a wide receiver threw a pass and set them up for a score. Both teams really just need to go back to work and work on fundamentals. I think Trinity will end up cleaning things up better than Westfield does, and will end up going a lot farther. And other than that, both teams have a good talent base to work on. It's early. There were jitters on the long travel for Trinity, and it was pretty obvious. Trinity brought a great fan base out there, surprisingly, for such a long drive. But again, it all boils down to fundamentals, and both teams need to get back to the drawing board as far as that goes. So this is Mike with the game-winning drive. Let's take you in to introduce the player of the week from our sponsors at Repair Experts.
This is Desmond Antoine presenting to you the 6ATexasFootball.com Player of the Week, brought to you by Repair Experts. For all of your iPhone, Galaxy, tablet, and PC needs, call Repair Experts. Get your fix. This week's Player of the Week is none other than Katie's DeAndre Glass. Rushing for 250 yards, Glass put up an astonishing 5 touchdowns on the Klein Collins defense. That is why he is our Player of the Week. Back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Desmond. We appreciate it. So that brings us to a close. This was your Week 2 6ATexasFootball.com post-game show. Once again, I'm Michael Barton.
And I'm Matthew Walmsley, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, that's right.